Just going to go ahead and start. I think the last few people are joining here, and I'm going to go ahead. My name is Laura Casa Lopoff Wright, and I am the communications manager here at the Wiregrass Museum of Art in Dothan, Alabama. I'm joining you from our studio upstairs in the museum, which sadly has been a very quiet place. The last year, we normally have students from schools, after-school art classes, adult art workshops. Some of the artists here tonight were planning on teaching workshops here during the run of the exhibition last year. Two of them will be virtual, so wait to hear more about that. But we're just thrilled to have this exhibition finally opening here at WMA after a year postponement because of COVID restrictions, and we're so glad that technology and Zoom can bring us all together this evening, just literally from all over the globe and all the time zones and everything. So this is very exciting for us. Today, I was just reading, I manage social media for the museum, and I was reading that it is World Art Day today. I don't know who makes up these, hashtags and days, but I thought that was really awesome that today is World Art Day, very appropriate. So as I mentioned earlier, this is the first exhibition program that we have for Path of Entry, which is opening tonight. Tomorrow will be the first full day. We'll go through June 26th. Bethany and Human will be teaching workshops in May 8th and May 22nd. And then Cynthia will actually have an artist talk for her solo exhibition in June. So be sure to check that out as well. I am going to introduce Cynthia in just a minute and disappear. But I wanted to say that at the end of this talk, we'll have time for Q&A. So we're in a webinar format, if you guys are familiar with that. Down below, you'll see a chat box and a Q&A box, and you can type in any comments or questions there, and I'll be monitoring that. And Cynthia will moderate at the end and have all of your questions answered. And without further ado, I'm going to introduce Cynthia Kirana, who is an artist based in Montgomery, Alabama, and also the guest curator for Path of Entry. So excuse me while I read from my notes a bit here. Cynthia is a multidisciplinary artist, educator, and art activist. Her works have been featured in solo and group exhibitions nationally and internationally all over the globe, in the United Arab Emirates, Malaysia, South Korea, Bangladesh, Italy, Sweden, Finland, Croatia, and of course here in the United States, all over the place, in venues such as the ISE Cultural Foundation in New York, the Joao B. Art Center, I hope I pronounced that right, in Chicago, Siena Art Institute in Siena, Italy, the Whitney Museum of American Art in New York City, and Montgomery Museum of Fine Arts here in Alabama, and of course here at the Wiregrass Museum of Art. She also had a piece in our biennial. It was B18, I think, Cynthia, right? B18, 2018. Anyway,
I believe so.
Yeah, she's currently serving on the board of the Montgomery Museum of Fine Arts, of course, in Montgomery, Alabama, and teaching at a visual and performing arts school there in Montgomery. And without further ado, I'm going to disappear for a bit and hand this over to Cynthia.
Thank you, Lara, for the introduction. I'd like to start by also extending my gratitude to all museum personnel involved in this exhibition. Dana, the curator, the director of the Wiregrass Museum, Brooke, Robin, and everybody else that has helped me with the installation in the past week, and also for providing space and support us in sharing our work here with you all. I also like to thank you all for being here, near and far, for joining either in person at the museum or virtually. I really appreciate your time and excited to be here. I'm not able to see your beautiful faces because of the webinar setting here, but hopefully towards the end when we have the Q&A, we'll see if we can get everybody on board. Also, just a reminder, please type any questions you may have during the presentation in chat, and we'll circle back at the end. And get comfortable. Feel free to have your snack or libation of your choice if you're of age. It is an opening after all. I have my water just in case. All the nervousness and anxiety gets my throat a little dry. but yeah, so let me see here. Let me share my screen. Doo-doo-doo. Okay. And I should go to the beginning. All right. So when Dana invited me to exhibit my work, 2019, she has graciously extended the opportunity to curate a group exhibition. And at that time, having just completed an artist residency at Vermont Studio Center, the landscape there was still very much fresh in my mind. Upon arrival to Johnson, Vermont, I was greeted by spring, its colors, its textures, sound, and scent, and its flavors. Um, there also where I met Karen, Human, Bethany, and Laura. During the short time of my residency there, I have learned so much from them, and truly admire their studio practice. And this is why I've included them to this show Path of Entry. Joe did not attend the residency. However, he and I have had many conversations that would lead to the inclusion of his work in this exhibition. I have a few photos of Vermont to share with you here. Laura, I think that is you. We're taking a walk. Um, this is one of the picture I took from our walk. So in process of remembering and reminiscing on those fond memories, I came across a poem by Joy Harjo, the first Native American poet laureate in the United States, called Remember. And you could say that all my stars align at this point. I found a clip of her poem, which I will play for you. Let me see here. Okay, are you able?
NJs don't go. That's hello in Muskogee Creek language. My name is Joy Harjo, and I am the U.S. Poet Laureate. I'm here today to welcome you to the Read Along. It's a special story time with PBS kids and the Little Free Library. Not just any free library, the Little Free Library, they're really cool. I've seen their stuff. I'm so excited to share a poem with you. Remember, and that poem is in this book of poetry called How We Became Human, which is a collection of many different poems. But I thought you might find this poem useful. So it's called Remember, and I wrote this poem because I always need to remember. I mean, you think about, where does poetry come from? Where does art come from? How do those things happen? And a lot of it's study. A lot of us study history and other, stars and all kinds of things, how rocks are made, and we get ideas. And a lot of it is so inspired. It's inspired, just like you can get inspired looking at flowers or plants or ideas. So the poem is called Remember. Remember the sky you were born under. Know each of the star stories. Remember the moon, know who she is. Remember the sun's birth at dawn. That is the strongest point of time. Remember sundown and the giving away tonight. Remember your birth, how your mother struggled to give you form and breath. You are evidence of her life and her mother's and hers. Remember your father. He is your life also. Remember the earth whose skin you are. Red earth, black earth, yellow earth, white earth, red earth, brown earth. We are earth. Remember the plants, trees, animal life who all have their tribes, their families, their histories too. Talk with them, listen to them. They are alive forms. Remember the wind, remember her voice. She knows the origin of this universe. Remember that all is in motion, is growing as you. Remember, remember.
So I'll stop there and go back to, sorry, just a moment. Okay. Um, Such a beautiful, beautiful poem. So this poem serves as a connecting point to the exhibition, as well as a path of entry to the work that is currently on exhibit. Um, Artists in the exhibitions have been inspired by or strictly explored the idea of environment at some level. So essentially, the show is an ode to the poetics of nature and our connection with it, whether it be cultural, social, spiritual, conceptual. Um, but it's also of a reflection of our connection with each other, um, our connection with um, our shared humanities. Um, so I wanted to show also, Laura mentioned earlier that we're from all over the place and currently in different time zones. So this is just a map showcasing where the location of each artist are. Um, we're we are all over the place. So in the next few slides, I will introduce the artists in this exhibitions. And after all the artists has been introduced, they will present their work. And towards the end, then that's when we circle back to the Q&A. Um, since Lara has kindly introduced me in the beginning, I'll just go ahead and start with some of my works in Path of Entry, particularly this series called Soil. Soil has multiple definitions. Soil is complex mixture of minerals, water, air, organic matter, and countless organisms that are the decaying remains of once living things. Soil could also be defined as to make unclean, to smudge, and the other reference definition is referencing origin, country, or land. In my work, soil is actually a reference of the passing of time, a memento mori, a remembrance of life and its complexity. The mark that you see in the works were made with a burning tool. So all of those tick marks there. I call this my heat drawing. The longer I let it stay on paper, the darker and widely spread the mark appears. And eventually, if I let it stay too long, it'll burn a hole in the paper. Um, the other component of this work is the collection of ashes to create ink. Um, you could see this in the bottom gray area here, right there. So this body of work is also connected with the series of work in my solo exhibition. So I won't go into detail because I will share that information in June. So I have to keep the mystery away. But if you have any questions about this work towards the end, then I'll be happy to answer any of that. So I will just go ahead and introduce all the artists in the exhibition, starting from Joe. Joe Bran, originally from Tianjin, China, currently working in South Dakota. Joe is a multimedia artist and educator. He received his MFA degree in 2D, specializing in digital media from Southern Illinois University, Carbondale. He is an assistant professor in digital arts and design at Dakota State University. He is also a co-founder and digital design manager at Exposed Art Magazine, a member of the executive committee at the Association of Chinese America in American Academy. For the past years, he has exhibited his artwork nationally and internationally in China, Sweden, Finland, and South Korea. The next artist in this exhibition is Bethany Johnson. She is currently working in Austin, Texas. She works in drawing, collage, sculpture. Johnson received her BA in studio art from the Kalamazoo College in 2007 and MFA in painting at the University of Texas at Austin in 2011. Her work is represented by Moody Gallery in Houston, where her fourth solo exhibition with the gallery took place this past winter. Johnson's artwork has been featured in New American Paintings, Hyperallergic, and HuffPost, among others. And she has held residency at, okay, these are a few German words that I might be mispronouncing, but let's try it here. So she has held residencies at Denkmalschmiede Hüfgen in Grima, Germany. And Bethany, feel free to jump in if I say it incorrectly. And Institut für Alles Mögliche in Berlin. Is that good?
You got it.
Okay, awesome.
Yeah, those are not fair. Those are really hard.
And Joshua Tree Highlands Artist Residency. She's an assistant professor at the School of Art and Design at Texas State University. The next, we have Hyomin Thon. Hyomin is from Daegu, South Korea, and currently living and working in South Korea. Hyomin's work in painting, collage, and installation. Hyomin received her BFA in painting from Daegu University in 2008, an MFA in painting and drawing at Pratt Institute in New York in 2017. Her work is represented by Yimok Gallery in Seoul, South Korea, where her recent solo exhibition was in 2020. She has held residencies at Vermont Studio Center and Gajang Art Center in South Korea. Hyomin, please let me know, and you can jump in if I say those incorrectly or pronounce it. Okay.
That's good. Don't worry.
Okay. So next we have Karen Stentaford. She is currently in Sackville, New Brunswick, Canada. She's an artist, an educator who's worked primarily in medium and large format photography, often employing toy cameras and alternative processes. Since 2012, much of her work has been made using the wet plate collodion process, glass negatives, and tintypes. Her recent body of work investigate areas of ideas of place, community, and memory, influenced by Newfoundland landscape, of her childhood. Karen is an assistant professor in the Department of Fine Arts at Mount Allison University. She holds a Bachelor's of Fine Arts from Mount Allison University, a Bachelor of Education in Visual Arts Specialist from Nova Scotia College of Art and Design University, and a Master of Art in Photography from the Edinburgh College of Art. Karen has participated in numerous artist residence programs, including SIM in Reykjavik, Iceland, Vermont Studio Center in Johnson, Vermont, and the Beaverbrook Art Gallery in New Brunswick. She is the recipient of numerous grants from Arts NB. So, side note, my auto text was going to change this to Arts Not for some reason. And the Canada Council of the Arts in support of her work, travel, professional development. She has exhibited her work in Canada, United States, United Kingdom, Poland, and Iceland. And last but not least, we also included Laura Lucia Sanz. Laura was born and raised in Bogota, Colombia. She is currently working in New York City. She received her BA in Visual Arts from Pontificia Javeriana University in Bogota in 2012. And Laura, please jump in if I pronounce it incorrectly. Later that year, Laura moved to the US to pursue an MFA in painting at Syracuse University, graduating in 2015. She currently maintains her studio practice and lives in New York City. She has exhibited her work locally and across the US, as well as abroad in Bogota, Colombia, Hamburg, Germany, and Barcelona, Spain. Her main medium has been the practice of painting and drawing, but has also worked with photography, installation, sculptures, and ceramic. So welcome all of you. Thank you for being here. And thank you for agreeing to be in this show. So now I will step back and each of the artists will share their pieces. And then towards the end, we'll go towards question and answer. Joe, you have the floor. Let me stop share here.
All right, let me start sharing. Can you guys see my screen? All right. All right. So first of all, I want to thank Cynthia and the museum, giving this opportunity, for us to introduce and talk about art, and also, make everything happening. Okay, so I'm going to talk about my work. Yeah, my name is Joe Bran. So my work is about the human and the nature. I found that in the tension between reality and representation. My work, including the show, is a series I started, before the pandemic. It feels like, like yesterday. I use water as a main element. So water is the most important element giving birth to life in nature. And also using plastic bag. Plastic bag is the basic human product of this modern world. As a company's consumptions and desire, I using plastic bag to create a movement of water that make them moving in circle or back and forth in between nature and human. I focusing on making those movement and reshaping the form of water to make them attractive enough in order to ignore what they actually are, and that behind the representation of a beauty. And we believe what we wanted to believe. We create something else for ourselves in order to easier to deal with what that actually is. I question the relationship between reality and representation, between what we see and what we want to believe. And this series have a lot of different movement. I really enjoying to making those happening. I myself was really drawn into all those creations, to watching how the water moving. I watch a lot of like how I like boiling the water, and when I cooking the noodles. I mean, actually, I don't really cook well, but Cynthia knows knows me. But those movements that really draw me into the creation of this. And this piece you guys seeing is the video work, as a screenshot. This landscape actually also made by plastic bag. I create a video piece like this, is that explore the view of landscape in between still and the movement. I'm fascinated by a larger space. In there, it opens more awareness of the awareness to the surroundings. It inspires me always a lot to feel the connection between human and the nature. In a Chinese philosophy says, seeing mountain is the mountain and river is the river. But mountain is not mountain, river is not a river. And look again, mountain is still the mountain, river is still the river. It basically talk about the three level of awareness and three level of perception. I incorporate this ideas a little bit into my work. So the first mountain is mountain, river is a river. That means we believe that what we see is the reality. And the second is mountain is not mountain, river is not river. That means like too much temptation and distraction, and too many unspoken rules hidden behind the mask of hypocrisy. So what we see may not be true. And the third, when we look again, mountain still the mountain, river still a river. That means the reality that we are trying to find is kind of the deception. The truth of reality we think we finally found is might not be the truth. And but this fake truth has been wrapped and decorated by our desire. So eventually the truth of reality might be not that important anymore. So I creating this a big circle to wanted to talk about those issues. And actually this video I made is actually from this piece. And this is a VR piece, as a virtual reality piece, and you supposed to wear a VR goggles, but I can't really show in right here. But the idea is like you wear the goggles, and you will be surrounded by the landscape I create like this. And I want us to think about the world we live in and our experiences about the duality, uncertainty, and doubt of reality itself. I hope I didn't take too long. Is it 5 minutes over? All right, thank
No,
you.
you're fine. You're fine. Thank you, Joe. Next, we have Bethany.
Hi, yeah, I can take over.
Yes.
All right. Feel free to let me know if you're not seeing my screen. But hi, I'm Bethany. Thanks so much again to everyone who worked so hard on this exhibition and for the opportunity to be a part of it. This body of work is really exciting for me to talk about, so I actually have a timer going, so I'm gonna keep myself under control. But thanks so much for the introduction. I'm just gonna go ahead and start kind of talking about this body of work that's in the exhibition. So these are drawings that constitute the body of work called The Poem That Took the Place of a Mountain. And there's a lot of detail in them, and I know, there might be some that's a bit lost over Zoom, so I tried to make them as big as I could within the screen. Also, just giving you a little context from my house of, what the scale looks like and how they're kind of framed within the picture plane otherwise. But again, just trying to show the detail as much as possible in these slides. There's a pretty kind of clear story that goes along with the history and development of these works. So I'm just going to go ahead and kind of explain where these came from. So in 2018, I had the real privilege to be able to stay on site for 2 months in the summer at the McDonald Observatory in West Texas. And so this was my view out of my back door while I was up there. And I also, it's at the top of a mountain in the Davis Mountains. And so if you turn around in the other direction, this is what you see in the other direction. And I kind of put myself in that place for a couple reasons in terms of, being in a place that would inspire and feed my practice. One was that, in some way or another, my work is always kind of fueled by nature and by landscape and the kind of long art historical kind of traditions and baggage that kind of comes along with that, along with kind of coupling that with the kind of more scientific or factual investigations into our natural world. I'm really attracted to the notion of astronomy as kind of one of those most kind of existential sciences of like, where are we, outside of us, right? Outside of our planet. There's something very kind of like pure and poetic about it. On the other hand, out there in West Texas, there's also a lot of study in geology taking place. The means of that and the outcome is very different because it's towards oil and gas activity out there, right, with the fracking that's taking place. And so, you know, there's kind of these dueling, in some ways, kind of scientific pursuits taking place in that setting, and just like this immense, really interesting landscape itself. So I ended up making these drawings that are essentially kind of stacked, layered, kind of core samples of all of that kind of inquiry from, you know, the sky to the kind of surface lived experience of the landscape, and then, you know, how we kind of map the levels and the layers below. And so, you know, in some way or another, that sort of became the kind of structure for building these drawings, where you're thinking about kind of breaking them down, you know, in terms of data visualization and, you know, kind of the stratification of different kinds of information and the different kinds of ways that you can represent something. So while I was there, I also got the chance to get my hands on some of those big telescopes. It was really fun, really exciting. So this is just like a bad iPhone photo, like through the viewfinder when we were kind of wandering around on the moon one night. And so, you know, that's one of the wonderful things about residencies, you know, Vermont included, you know, that Cynthia mentioned, that, you know, you kind of get to find new things that you didn't know you were going to find or have access to or be excited about. So you can see how some of that kind of ended up within the work as well. So both kind of collecting some of the scientific imagery that accompanied the astronomical study, but then also it's kind of collecting imagery however I could. So some more examples of just kind of the stacking of different kinds of sort of segments of information, some like more or less related to, you know, the representational aspect of the landscape. There are also a lot of road cuts out there where you can actually like really clearly see that kind of notion of the geology and the depth and kind of moving into the earth. So I took a lot of photos of those, and a lot of those ended up in the work as well. And so, you know, whether or not these things are kind of ultimately legible in the drawings without knowing this secret information, you know, isn't important to me, right? Because I think that's some of the poetry of the work itself, that it can kind of be a lot of different things to different people. But this is kind of where the fuel and the food came from for this body of work. So mostly started as smaller scale drawings, moved into some larger scale drawings as well. So both of those are represented in the exhibition at the Wiregrass Museum. And so this is one of the larger ones. Again, can kind of like get into a little bit more of that juicy detail with that larger scale. But the small scale, again, is kind of very much about connecting to like a document kind of size and format to, again, kind of connect to the science and the kind of factual kind of searchings as well. And then I just thought I'd end with a collage, which is not in the exhibition, but I am going to be doing a collage workshop accompanying the exhibition. I think that was May 8th is my day. And so I did want to kind of like draw the connection between the two, because there's a lot of sort of similar conceptual and compositional things that are taking place with the collages like these, as well as the drawings that are in the exhibition. And so collaging is a kind of like fun, fast way to make something together, whereas millions of marks, you know, doesn't really kind of fit in an hour-long workshop. So, you know, I wanted to kind of draw that connection, and I would look forward to seeing some of you there. But I have overstayed my welcome, so I'll go ahead and pass it off to the next person. Thank you so much.
Not at all, Bethany. Thank you. Please take your time. Don't worry. Hyomin, you're up next.
Hi. Just a moment for share my screen. Can you see my screen, right? Hello, my name is Hyomin Kwan, and thank you again so much to join our talk. And today I'm going to introduce overall my works, I think. My artistic practice focuses on reconstructing paintings and installation art through elevated visual effects manifested from the physical property of a subject matter. In collecting everyday objects that provoke visual inspiration, each object is carefully contemplated to grasp the impact of the elements infused in the object on the emotion and sense. Such provocative elements are incorporated in work as material resources or mediums. This practice developed into an experiment in which various archival material textures, colors, and properties are combined or stretched. Frequently appearing forms that create complex interactions in my early paintings works interpret illusionary form derived from unconscious cognition and the process of choosing materials. Materials often entail both color, light-sensitive properties, and decorative elements. Elements cohere into a singular visual statement through which the reconstruction of elements depicts the natural environment like forest and space, whereby the image creates a realm of liberation. The work, sorry, I just want to share earlier works. And the works using feathers examine the space or audience movements, as the feather is a delicate material that responds sensitively to the movement. The distinct feature of the feather was profoundly explored to produce a space of fantasy, and the feather-based installation allowed audience engagement. The work Dusted Clump adopt the shape of duster. The ostrich feathers used for the duster generate static elasticity to stick dust onto the feather. Thus, the work intends to observe the dust or body odor of audience as they walk by the installation in a manner in which the work drives audience participation by including marks. The recent Goldstone series that use resin was developed based on a question about a direct physical engagement of intended visual effect from the previous works. I found nails as a body part to capture visual effects that are revealed through nail art. The portfolio shows enlarged photos of the works in this series. And the resin-based part are as small as the size of the palm. I have anticipated creating sub-miniature forms of space using using materials that deeply resonate with me. Through this series, I searched for a solution to emotional change upon being immersed in the subject matter, separated from the body. I have realized that I take a passive approach towards such subject matter in reality. This passive approach is represented with very small or elongated forms. That's it, and that brings us to the end of my presentation, and thank you again. Let's talk about the Q&A maybe.
Thank you, Hyo-min. We still have Karen and Laura. So Karen, take it over, and then after you, Laura, and we could get into the Q&A. I'm going to mute myself.
Great. Okay, can you see my screen okay? Great, okay. Thanks so much for arranging this for this evening, and also the exhibition, especially, a year later. But it's really wonderful, even if we can't be there in person, that we're here gathered virtually, the artists, and then also all the other members who are joining us tonight. So I'll be showing a couple of slides that are from older bodies of work or earlier bodies of work, just for a little bit of context, followed by selected pieces from Snow, which is the work that's included in Path of Entry. So just bring that up. Let's see, sorry, here. Okay. So much of my childhood was spent on the Avalon Peninsula in Newfoundland, before moving to Nova Scotia as a teenager. And as Cynthia mentioned in my introduction, I now reside in Sackville, New Brunswick. So my work deals very much with a sense of place, memory, absence, and community. And I explore these ideas through vernacular kinds of architecture, the landscape, through this kind of sometimes still life, and more recently through portraiture. And although I moved away from Newfoundland well over 25 years ago now, that experience of growing up there really kind of shaped much of what I still do today. And I'm constantly drawn to coastal areas, barren landscapes, islands, and again, just architecture that is very, very much about those places. So in 2019, when I met many of the artists included in this exhibition, I really strayed from how I would normally work. Vermont, not on the coast. So I kind of just took a chance and went somewhere very different. And also, I started out by doing something that I'd never do. I didn't research the area. So I challenged myself in a different way of how I was working, and going there just kind of fresh and experiencing just my connection to the place. And in order to do that, it was really kind of about, I'm just going to go to the next slide, really about this idea of searching. So I would go for walks, I would go for drives, and I found myself constantly searching, and then I found snow. So it's this kind of interest of mine of in between. So in between seasons, for example. And when I was in Vermont, you'll notice if you think to Cynthia's images, it was, spring, everything was starting to come into bloom. So I went up to some of the higher peaks in Vermont and worked there where things were a little bit more behind. Winter was just leaving and nothing had really kind of come up just yet. And it was that simple act of searching that really took me to some amazing places and experimentation, new ways of working, and material research. So in searching for snow, I spent a lot of time at a place called Smuggler's Notch and Stowe, Barnes Camp. And that's really where I spent much of my time. The images that I'm showing you today are all made from the wet plate collodion process, one of the first kinds of photography that requires a darkroom on site. So this is my darkroom that I made out of an ice fishing tent that I can just pop up and put anywhere. And each image that I make is unique. The last image, it was me holding the plate in my hand, piece of metal, and as I mentioned, made on site. So just to kind of give you a reference of how I work, this is collodion being poured onto a piece of glass. So I can use either glass or metal. All of the ones this evening are on metal. Collodion is a binding agent. It sticks to a surface, and then that plate is then placed into a tank of water and silver nitrate. And for those of you who have used film in the past, you'll know that silver is the active component that records light and reacts with light. So basically, I've stuck this kind of gelatin-like material to a surface. I've sensitized it, and then I would normally put it in my camera and expose it to light. So this is what it would look like coming out of the tank. And you can see that I'm working in my tent, my dark room. And working in this way, it demands a very slow pace. You set up your dark room, you're experiencing the place as you're working, and that really complements my desire to spend time where I'm working. There's many variables that can kind of come into play, from environmental to if a piece of dust lands on the plate, that becomes part of it. There's kind of rules, there's ideal situations that as you're working, you want to keep your plate clean. You don't want to touch the surface, and exposing it through a camera, kind of these controlled settings. But those kinds of consistent ways of working are not always desirable. And sometimes you have these plans of how things are going to develop, and then life takes place. So residencies, you have this compressed amount of time. It's an amazing gift to be able to work so focused for that time. So I would always want to make the most of the time that I had when I was out at Smuggler's Notch. One day I set up and it was great. And then it started pouring rain. The wind picked up and it was sideways rain, and then kind of snow. But I was determined to stay there. I couldn't set up a camera anymore. So I thought, okay, how can I work? I can work more directly with the environment that I've been spending so much time in. So that's where this body of work, snow, kind of evolved from, things not working out and taking chances. And really, these images are depictions of a landscape that not only are abstracted through the form of how they were made, but is also kind of a direct result of the environment. So in terms of how they're made, I'll just kind of go through a couple. So these are tintypes. It's an image made on a piece of black coated metal. And I'm just going to backtrack slightly. Living in Atlantic Canada, we have 4 extreme seasons. While many people really enjoy the summer, the warmer months, I really find comfort in the cold. I love the winter. And each spring I find myself like really wanting to extend the winter. And I often spend time searching for little pockets of snow within the landscape. And I'm excited by every little patch that I can find. And somehow these, little patches of snow are surviving in the shadows. And this body of work is also this attempt to preserve the impermanence of our changing climate. So each of these cameraless images, so I've put away my camera at this point. I'm breaking the rules because I'm now taking handfuls of snow, placing them on my sensitized plate and exposing it to the daylight, the rain, the wind, and then processing it on site. So it's this direct record of the time that I spent at these locations. So the first three that I've shown are from Smuggler's Notch, and the next three are from Barnes Camp. So what started out as this kind of like, I just have to keep working, really evolved into a deeper exploration of my connection with location, of place, and with nature. And it's kind of this ephemeral intersection of light, melting snow, and time made permanent on this plate through silver and light. So working this way, it really does kind of facilitate for me a deeper connection with my environment, slowing down, and really kind of paying attention to my environment. You'll notice that these, my surroundings, these three are very different in tone. So I started to begin to see changes in where I was working, and the snow would also have a chemical reaction. So I've, done all these things that you shouldn't do, and really kind of made these really interesting depictions of a landscape. The last two that I'll show you are from Sackville. So when I came back the following winter, I wanted to extend this to include where I currently reside. So I will end on this last one here. Okay. A little bit of insight into what you might see at Path of Entry.
Thank you, Karen. Laura.
Hey everyone, thank you, Karen. That was amazing. I'm so happy to see all the work together through the pictures. I would love to be there with you. Thank you so much for everyone that's actually present there seeing the work. It's kind of strange to think of a place full of people and people having like that relationship, that direct relationship with the work. So let me see, I'm not so good with technology, but I'm gonna try to share my screen with you. Got it. Give me a second, please. Oh my God. Okay. Can you hear? I hope you still can hear me. Okay, sorry.
We can hear you. You are
Okay,
sharing
good.
your screen now.
Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Great. So. Okay, this is the work installed in the Wiregrass Museum. I start working on this first painting in Vermont Studio Center. The title of this painting is Interrupted Networks. At this time, I was thinking a lot about embodied memory and memory of place It was amazing to see so many people from different places and to learn how was their relationship with their environment, their sense of land. And again, I think all of us had like this strong relationship to Vermont itself because it was changing. And because it's a beautiful place, the rivers, the mountains. And it really made me feel at home. In Bogota, Colombia, there's a lot of mountains too. And that's something that I missed a lot while being in the States. But at the same time, I was thinking of like this sense of place as an impossible thing to recreate. Like all memories, they are built from fiction and retelling the same story over and over again, like where are you from? So you start telling these stories about the place that you come from, and coming from Colombia, the stories of Colombia are highly fantasized. So I had like this idea of like this network of what my memory was, and like the constantly being interrupted by the sense of place that the media has, that other people have from what they've read. So this is kind of the painting that started that. But at the same time, like I was looking at these leaves, it's like a point of view painting. Like I imagine someone looking through them. And this like sense of curiosity where all of these questions come from are also like a way of building like new networks. So it was like, that's where the title comes from. Like this idea of like, you're trying to hide the fiction that your land is, or you're trying to like make a good picture of it and how impossible it is. This next painting is called Gravitational Forces. I wanted to make a painting that was sort of the opposite of the last one, where you will be, instead of a point of view that is so first point of view person, something that was like very abstracted or like seen from behind, from like really far away. And the idea of like people like these small planets and these small like identities that now are being so divided and classified, and trying to like interrupt the networks that are sort of dividing us and trying to make our individual selves into these very separate beings that are like easily categorized, and the strength that like of that gravitational force that people are to create change and do something, being able to like it was at the time where there was a lot of protest all over the world. So I was thinking of like that power of people as like these small gravitational forces coming together and interrupting the networks at the same time. Like I wanted to like create a like a narrative between the titles, inspiring the poem that Path of Entry started with. This painting is called Unreadable Territories. I was thinking of memories of place and how nature had created a sense of body awareness in me that could like break the boundaries between humans, nature, our bodily self. It was a moment in the Amazon jungle where we went at nighttime and all the plants have like this light fungus that was bioluminescence. And it just, I was small, and it made me like think of how amazing it is that we can be affected by everything, and that we're like full of bacteria and little things, and our life force is more than just like these separate bodies. And finally, this is Tangled Environments. I live now next to the Hudson River, where I see reflections all the time. So this is inspiring a picture of those reflections. And I just like the idea of how the reflections break like that illusion of the vision that we have of landscape as something stable or a reality because of what we see. And likewise with the colors, that colors are so deceitful, and it's just a reflection of like this energy in our brain creating these images. So that was the inspiration for this painting, and all of them are made from memory. I look at pictures sometimes, but mainly is an exercise on memory that again relates to the title of the exhibition. This is the paintings in my home with a very dirty floor. And that's it. Thank you so much.
Awesome. Thank you everybody for sharing your work. I'm echoing. Yay! Yay! Thank you guys. So I suppose we open the floor now for Q&A, and let me check here. I see there is one question here from Dana. How have you stayed inspired in the past year, and what are you working on currently? So anybody want to tackle that one first? How have you stayed inspired in the past year? And what are you working on currently?
Okay, I'll jump in. It's okay. Well, I think in terms of staying inspired, where I live, I have access to so much outdoor space, and I think it's actually been really amazing to have access to that and spend time outside in a very empty landscape. And I think that spending that time has actually led to new work that I'm starting now that the school year is coming to an end. That's dealing very much with this kind of like energy of we have the highest tides in the world 5 minutes from our house. So it's like this immense energy that exists and the cycle that exists, and where the estuary meets where the fresh water meets the ocean. So I've begun, we always would take our dog out for walks in this area, and we've been going so much more recently. And I've been kind of like, through just routine, also been drawing a lot of inspiration from the land. So very much what I normally would travel to do, I've kind of reversed and looking more locally at what is inspiring me right here in my own backyard. So I guess that's.
Well, I followed you on Instagram. And your landscape, it's like, I think I mentioned this to you before. It's like, wow, Karen,
private.
It's so open, but it's yet private at the same time, because you don't see any other, like human being in it. So it's like, this is amazing. It's like you're living in the moon, and so many space, and it's so beautiful. So thank you for snapping those photos for us to enjoy.
Yeah, I can jump in on the question about staying inspired. I mean, I guess my answer is a little bit, I kind of took a side route for a while where I think, at the beginning of social distancing and staying at home, like I think everyone was, a lot of people were feeling really adrift, right? Like one day would just kind of blend into the other. You're like, when have I changed my pants? Like you need to like kind of mark time, in some way. And so I just like pivoted entirely to this really like simple practice of like doing a drawing a day just of my life and of my day, which as you can see like has like nothing to do really with the other work that I make. But I don't know, I just kind of allowed myself to do what felt necessary personally, you know, to kind of like mark time and, you know, kind of record that time in some way. And there's likely, you know, nothing or little I'll do with that, you know, professionally or in the world. But I think for me, at least, it's useful to remember that you don't always have to be making things, at least things that like, you know, need to be seen.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. Also, Bethany, since I have you on the spot here, there is a question by one of the visitors. Hold on just a second. Donna Pickens. Oh, hi, Donna. Donna is wondering if you could talk about your process, talk about your work. Was it digitally made, or was it made using pencils, pen, etc.?
Yeah, I could definitely explain. And I know sometimes I just kind of skip over those parts because it's so, you know, self-obvious to yourself. So you kind of forget those basic things. But yeah, the work is a combination. So there's color that you see in the works that is kind of in the background. And those are kind of flat color fields or kind of graduated gradients of color that is inkjet printed onto the paper first. So that's an inkjet print of the kind of color environment. And then the drawing is a hand drawing on top of that in black and blue inks with technical pens on paper. So the rest of that on top of that is all hand drawn.
Awesome. It's a little odd for me for not being able to see the faces of our guests. Let's see. Thanks, lots of time involved. Donna mentioned things and lots of time involved, exclamation mark. What about you, Joe? How have you stayed inspired in the past year, and what are you working on?
Last year, the whole year, I feel I just stay home. It's really hard. Yeah, I usually travel, you know, different places to get inspired, to seeing people, you know, taking photos. And then, you know, last year, I actually start 19, right? It's kind of like a year and a half. Yeah, it's like stocking at home. I mean that, and for me, it's just like, you know, first it just feels like, oh, what can we do? You know, there's nothing, you know, feels like a lake of creativity. And now and then like later I find out like, you know, maybe there's a good time to slow down and connecting with more local, you know, people, you know, especially, you know, I mean, local people, we still stay in virtual because they're the whole situation. But it's like giving us give me more opportunity. I can explore the nature around. So we have a big lake surround this town. So like you know, I visit there to just, you know, sometimes just watching the whole surroundings. I mean, the winter is a hard time. You know, we are, you know, South Dakota. Winter is like probably like a maybe not as a Canada, but I'm seeing probably the same. We have the really big snow sometimes. Like last year, is it last year? We got like a negative 26 for a few days. It's, you know, I never had that experience before. So I guess those, you know, like, you know, stay more connected with, you know, more surround us, make me feel more slow. And for the media, you know, I'm working in digital, so I just using a lot of like you know, images. I usually taking a photo with my camera and my phone. But you know, on the other hand, you know, social media also, you know, make me feel like more open because I, you know, instead of stay home, you know, social media become a window. That way I can see what's going on, see people, you know, post it, what people doing. You know, I talk to Cindy a lot. That's another way, you know, keep me inspired. And we always talk about, you know, all kinds of different things. You know, I'm just thinking art not always inspire me, but you know, any any other, you know, ideas we can talk about that could be something to turn it into. And I've also fortunate that I have a lot of colleagues here in college. We talk about a lot of you know, crazy ideas that make me at least make me feel more motivated to keep going.
Yeah, thank you for that. Well, actually, I'm also always inspired by you, so it works both ways. I have a question from one of my students, actually. I have a question for Mr. Ren. How were you able to make your piece with the plastic bags as water, and what gave you the idea, or what was your inspiration to make it the way that you did?
Oh yeah, so
Like,
yeah, the plastic bag. Every time I went to places, it's really hard to not seeing plastic bag around us. I remember one day I mean recently, like many years ago, I was in a shopping mall. There's a plastic bag, flying in the window. It kind of a very funny way, like like a seeing a cartoon flying around. First thinking is pretty funny, but it was second think about, okay, this is exactly the relationship between human and nature. And I inspired by a lot of, like, I have a Asian background. I inspired by a lot of, like, Chinese, Asian Chinese painting, and those also especially with a lot of comics. So those shape of water, I got a lot of inspired from there. Trying to make the movement more, in kind of like a fantastic, world that, a little bit different with what we see every day, but I still get connection with, where they come from. And those plastic bag, I take a lot of different shots. I have a full jar of different kinds of plastic bags saved. It's pretty funny. I always, talk to people, hey, if you have a, something interesting shape of plastic, different color of plastic bag, save for me. And I just, using different lightings, and sometimes, you're just sculpting into a certain shape, and it's in a plastic bag, it's easy to turn it into any kind of shape. So it feels like a water, right? You put water in particular container, it will become that thing, it will become that shape. And plastic bag is pretty much similar. We can, actually shape everything. Even we can create a particular texture on that particular plastic bag. I think it's, very interesting thing to make them combination. Am I answer the question?
yeah, I think so. Totally. Laura.
Cynthia.
How do you stay? How have you stayed inspired in the past year, and what are you working on?
I'm doing more paintings that start with a black background, like the last couple of them. I think I've stayed inspired by trying to adapt to change. And as you all remember, my pieces at Vermont Studio Center were very large. And now I have had to like minimize everything since I'm living in the city where I don't have a lot of space. And my past roommate wouldn't let me paint all over the living room. Normal, understandable. So I think that having to adapt and having to change and having to do a smaller scale painting have really made me approach the process different and think about what I was mentioning about like the points of view and the scales of things. Also just looking around, looking at the web of the city changed so much from being like full of people going to their work, like all of this network of little ants all the time working, to like being a ghost place. And think about like, well, these people don't disappear, they're somewhere else creating these networks again, and like sort of like that overlapping of all of these networks is inspiring my newer pieces and some of the pieces that are in the museum, where it's like a lot of overlapping of small details, and that's like the new path I'm taking. Smaller scale, still a lot of marks, trying to keep like that big energy in like a smaller thing. Yeah.
I could see that it's a bit more intimate too, because the darkness
Right.
and the luminescence of your paint. So it's, for me, it looks more intimate than your previous work, but it does still have that same energy
That's right.
as your bigger ones. I guess I'm the last one that haven't answered this question. How have I stayed inspired? Well, talking to the artists here. We've been planning this exhibition for a while, but also just trying to organize my studio. At the moment, once you have shows after show, I mean, your house is like, well, my house anyway, it's like a plane crash in there. So I try now that I have time to just be still for a moment, to clean up. And my sister is actually in the audience, and she'll probably tell me that, well, you still need to do a lot of work. But yeah, so that's how I stay creative, is by trying to reorganize my space. Reading, doing a lot of reading, and rethinking where my pieces are currently, and trying to experiment with different materials. Um, and I think the question for my work right now is, a lot of the pieces that I've been making is mostly black and white, and maybe I put a little bit of color here and there, as you saw earlier with the red strips. But the question is always like, do I want to introduce a new color or keep it that way? So that's the conversation that I always have in my studio by myself. What am I working on currently? And that's that experimentation. And I'm also working on more three-dimensional pieces. Since being in Montgomery, I am fortunate to have a lot of space. I know, Laura, you have the opposite experience. So if you ever want to make art here in Montgomery, you are welcome.
Thank you.
But I am grateful for the many space, front yard, backyard. So I've been trying to create more larger pieces in a sculptural manner. Some woodworking, things like that. I'm actually taking a woodworking class. It's an online class. This guy, the teacher, is a woodworker from Spain. Yeah, so that's interesting. Okay, the next question.
Hey, Cynthia, this is Lara. We haven't heard from Human about
Oh,
her.
Yamin. Oh no,
Sorry.
I'm sorry. I didn't mean to skip you. Thank you, Lara.
For me, I don't know. It's like it's same as you guys. It's going around, traveling around, staying. For me, maybe like the something reaction for the material shapes that makes me like, why that material, like something make me feeling, get the feeling. So that makes me more thinking about why what beauty makes me stopping my brain or stopping my my eyesight. So, and then I go to the deeply questioning about what in my story or my history maybe makes me stopping that that material, like that. So, and recently I just staying in my studio and reading a lot, and we have a good good PC, so I just using the YouTube researching about art 21 or listening every artist what they think about their theme, or how can staying inspiring, and just think about that. Maybe, yeah, that's it.
Yeah, Art21 is a very good resource. And also, if you haven't heard of Louisiana channel on YouTube, yeah, that one
That's
is
great.
also, very nice. From Laura, for all artists, has the environment or nature always been a central theme in your work? If not, what made you introduce these themes in your pieces? Have the environment or nature always been a central theme in your work? And if not, what made you introduce this theme in your pieces? Should I start? Okay, I can start. I can start. Has the environment and nature always been a central theme in your work? Well, the central theme in my work has always been um, life and the passing of time. So in a way, it does relate to nature. But I think in terms of environment, my interest was to um, extend the 2D into the 3D realm in terms of like, how do I bring in the viewer's experience into looking at the work? And not just, looking at it from a two-dimensional perspective, but to move them in a way. If, for instance, I started an installation in 2013. It was made out of eggshells, and it was a process of collecting, similar to like making marks onto paper. But in this case, I'm collecting to materialize time. And when hanging the work in the museum, um, I noticed that every time people walk by, the eggs will sway because of the air and the change of environment. And so the kind of relationship between um, the viewers into the work and the work into the viewer is something that I'm interested in exploring a little bit more. So I guess environment in that sense, environment in the sense of experience. Um, what made you introduce these themes in your work? Um, well, for this particular piece, I think my work has always been a bit more conceptual. It does draw inspiration from nature, as you know earlier, soil. But I'm taking the inspiration and then sort of like recycling them and trying to reconceptualizing them into the idea of duality, the idea of time pass, the idea of fragility. Um, yeah, Bethany, want to take it over?
Sure. Um, yeah, Cynthia, I mean, I think what you're saying, kind of relates to the way that I think about it too, that, I know we need to have like language and words for things, but, thinking about nature as being something sort of separate from us, is something that has always been kind of the foundation for, what I'm interested in, which is that like nature and the environment is like our world, and it is what we're part of. And so, it's just kind of come out of an interest in just trying to like understand the world around you. So for me, it's been out of kind of a deep well of curiosity and kind of using different avenues to kind of figure that thing out. How does it look from visual art? How does it look from science? How does it look from poetry or music, right? Like all of those things, are kind of different lenses to see the same thing in different ways. And that's why, Joe, I really liked what you were talking about in terms of like the levels of understanding of like the mountain is a mountain, the mountain is not a mountain, and then the mountain is a mountain again, in terms of like all of the different ways that we can kind of turn something over and understand it differently, along the way. And so, yeah, I mean, that actually really closely connects to the title of the body of work, the poem that took the place of a mountain, because that is actually a title of a poem by Wallace Stevens, that's really kind of all about, you know, through our perception, and then certainly through like what we make, you know, it's always going through layers of translation and, you know, editing, and kind of highlighting something and removing something else. And so, yeah, I just really resonated with that theme that I felt like actually was kind of traveling across a lot of people's discussions of their work. So.
I can take over. I think it's very interesting what Bethany is saying, that, and Cynthia, and the work of all of us, that there is like this sense of nature as something that's immediate and sort of real. Like it's like this medium through which all of us are questioning like truth, or like finding nature as like this background or something that's permanent. But at the same time, I think in all of our work, there's also this relationship with impermanence. So I love how it's like where all of us are using what's like more basic, or like more nature, more like right there for us, and at the same time like making these very abstract existential questions. Which for me, I think is like the way that I related to nature always, to like going out there and just spending time outside and feeling how there's something greater than yourself. And I think that's what for me got nature into my work too. But it's nice because it's like this very this modular existence of like what we see out there, like cells and little leaves and like very detailed thing, and at the same time like these very abstracted questions. I like that about the work together.
I can take over. I mean, that question makes me like think about what is environment for me, meaning for me, you know, like, so my theme is not really environment or nature, but the finer form of my work is nature. So I just think about you know, like my work is like artificial nature, right? So the recent days we live in the city, or the, you know, a lot of the building around a lot of buildings, and everything looks like artificial. So for me, like, you know, maybe I miss the, you know, nature shapes, or, you know, nature makes me more comfortable, or, you know, like, but the materials, like the more comfortable for me material shapes, or the form makes me comfortable. So like I want to mix them to the nature, and artificial materials makes me more comfortable. So maybe that is central thinking of my work, I think.
Karen and Joe, what about you guys?
Yes,
What do you think
say-
about?
Joe, do you want to go? You can go.
Oh, okay. I was saying you guys say everything is like
Yeah.
awesome.
I think I would echo a lot of what everybody has talked
Yeah.
about.
That's right. You already kind of you know have a little skin. There's a part of me that, well, that's right. I feel that same thing. It's crazy. Yeah, my work mainly dealing with the environment. So I was born in a big city, so like a million people, you know, surround. Like the living space is not like what I live in here. Like, you know, it's like really huge contrast. Here's like we are like a big land of one person. You know, there's nothing around us. You know, we're surrounded by a lot of animals. And we have a lot of rabbits here. We have a raccoon. We have a skunk. But we also have a red fox. They're pretty cute, right? So like really close to nature. And when I first in the United States, I was in New York. And New York is a little, like it's a big difference, like a huge metropolitan. My city, like like in China, is big enough, but in New York is even more crazier. The more, this is like a combination of a different kind of culture and different perspective. I thought it really fascinating. My work earlier is including a lot of urban city, with the human relationship, and and then I went to a graduate school. I went to a Carbondale. Carbondale is another very peaceful place. Not saying isolated, but it's not much going on. It's pretty much a college town, and we able to explore a lot of nature. I remember we went to a nature exploration trip with Anna. Remember, Cynthia? And we got lost. She's supposed to be like an expert, like leading us go and in, but she got lost too. we got scared. Oh man, we're gonna lost in the nature. Nobody gonna rescue us. But that's really interesting. Feelings about like you're really used to in this like a civilization culture, and all of a sudden put you in the nature and you got lost, and your mind is, I don't know, you're not finding the connection at the first. You're finding scared. But once we walk around surrounding by more of nature, you kind of start to building something very strange. I mean, very strange. Like it's weird, really weird. I just found really scared by like become like a little bit curiosity, like this is like what we've been here, and connect to what we before, and start to think about what if we're not able to get out. Right, think about a lot of questions, imagine a lot of scenes. I don't know, you guys seen the TV series Lost? They have a 6th season. Yeah, I start to think about that like that time. I just feel like very interesting way to how people connect to the nature before they get into the nature. And my work now is more relate with the nature than just the urban environment, because of the surroundings. I guess the environment really change you, and of course you're changing your environment too. But that's another story. Like Cynthia said, there's always the idea of the duality. Yeah, thanks.
I do remember that trip, Joe. And yes, but I think, oftentimes when you're kind of like cornered in a really scary situation, your instinct just kicks in, right? I mean, that's like, and then you go back to like this primal, like basic, like human, instead of like, advanced, intelligent being. You're just now using your instinct, like, okay, we need to survive.
Yeah. Do you guys know the Mammoth Cave? It's around near Tennessee. It's called Mammoth Cave. It's like a very large cave, around North America. I got a chance to went down there. It's really deep, and when you get into the certain point, there's like an underwater lake. It's really huge and beautiful, and they even fishes in there. And they only allowed like certain number of a group to be there. And when we got there, and they turned off all the lights under like this is really deep. Man, in that moment, you will just perceive everything around you. It's really quiet because nobody making any sound. Man, that's the real nature around you, and you're not. I mean, because you can't really see anything, and there's open more about your awareness about what could possibly surround you. Man, that's a really amazing experience for me.
Thanks for sharing, Joe. Karen, would you like to add to that? Or I see Lara has
yeah. I won't talk too much because I think a lot of what everyone has said, I mean, I can probably just pull bits from everyone's comments and from kind of that exploration of connections with nature that Bethany was talking about from different lenses, different perspectives, to finding comfort in nature and that kind of impermanence of nature and that kind of examination of that. You know, and I think just, you know, life in general in the past year, especially if we think about our past year, and as Joe was saying, you spend so much time by yourself, that when we start to think about our connections that we're able to make, and we're able to make them, you know, through plants and animals and those connections to nature in general, maybe it kind of offers this sense of comfort or not being alone, that we are constantly wanting this human connection. But maybe if we just kind of slow down and become more aware of what's right around us in terms of nature, that's kind of a different perspective that we can learn from the past year, and maybe recognize in work that we've done and more consciously incorporate it to how we move forward.
That's beautiful.
Well, I'm going to jump back in here if y'all can hear me. And I just invite you all to come to Alabama because we have a lot of nature here. We have mountains and rivers and the ocean, and it's one of the most biodiverse states in the country. So if you get a chance, if you've not been to Alabama, we would love to have you. We have urban centers and small towns and everything in between. So it's a very interesting place to visit and live as well. I just want to jump in and say thank you again to all of you, all of our artists, for joining us this evening. We're in lots of different time zones. I think it's very early in Korea right now still. So thank you. Have your coffee and wake up, and the rest of us are going to go to bed, I think. So thank you to everyone who joined us this evening. Many of these artists, I think everyone here either did a social media takeover for us or did a Q&A interview on our blog. And so I'm going to try to reshare some of those things. The artists all did that last year when we couldn't hold the exhibition. So some of you listening might have gotten to know some of these artists a little bit already. And so hopefully you got to learn some more about them tonight. Please don't forget about Bethany's workshop on May 8th and Human's workshop on May 22nd. Bethany's for, I think, 18 and up, 16 and up. And then Humans, sorry, and then Humans for children, 5 to 10-ish. So please join us, and you can register if you look on our calendar at wiregrassmuseum.org, and you can find the happenings tab, and the links are there. And of course, if you follow us on social media, I'll be sharing those reminders to register as well. And don't forget about Cynthia's talk about her solo show in June. That'll be coming up as well. And please, please come if you can in person to visit Wiregrass Museum of Art now through June 26th. We always have general admission free, thanks to our great partners in the community and our wonderful members. So please come see us, and it was wonderful. And I hope everyone has a great evening or great day, depending on where you are. And we'll see you all soon.
Thank you
Before
so
we
much.
go, we have to screenshot.
Oh, yes.
Cynthia, please.
Okay.
Let us know.
I'm on mute. Oh my God.
Oh, yeah.
I'm on mute.
What are you doing?
I was like talking and then I'm on mute. I was asking Laura if there's a chance to try to get the audience or the participants to pop up on the screen.
I don't think we can get video. I can get everyone's sound, but no video. I looked up.
Oh,
That's okay.
okay.
Thank you so much.
Who's leaving.
Yes, yes.
Thank you so much. Hi, Jean. I see the names here. Ah, great.
And some people have already left.
My students here. That's great.
I'll send you that list. Everyone have a good
Okay.
one.
Goodbye.
Thank you.
Thank you, Clara.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye, everybody. This is great. Well, cheers, all the artists.
Cheers.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Cheers. This is 9 a.m.
Yeah.
Well,
So I plan on
magic.
going back to the Wiregrass Museum to take high quality photos and also maybe like a video kind of shot too. And I'll share with
This video gonna be
um,
awesome.
yeah, I'll share that with you all. And then Hyomin, I'll rearrange your piece also.
Okay,
So
thank you.
once I get there, then I will give you a call, video
Mhm.
call. I should be
Yes.
there. Oh, Lara, I should be back.
Laura already gone.
Oh yeah,
The
Lara.
other Lara.
Oh,
They're too loud.
There is a Lara and there's a Laura.
Lara
okay.
and Laura. Uh-huh.
Lara and Laura. Yeah. So the 23rd, I will probably drive there after school. And then will the museum be open on
What day of the week is that?
so the 23rd and the 24th is Friday and Saturday.
Yes, we're open both of those days.
Oh, okay, perfect. For some reason on Google it says, oh no, maybe that was Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday.
Yeah, Monday, Tuesday, we're not open to the public, but
Okay.
if you could come, yeah, you can come those days. too.
Okay, but I think the
The
Friday
staff,
and
the
Saturday.
staff is here, but yeah, we're open to the public those days, but the staff is here every day.
Okay, sounds good. Perfect.
Yeah, and I recorded this whole thing, so I'll download it and I'll put it on social media for anyone who missed it, and YouTube.
Okay. Okay. Awesome. Oh, on YouTube. Oh my gosh.
Oh my God.
I don't have to put it on YouTube. I can just share it on social media if you'd rather.
Like artists and recording is like, oh gosh.
Oh, I know. All right. Y'all have a great evening.
Thank you so much.
Thank
Thank
you
you
so
so
much for
much.
coming.
Bye,
Bye.
everybody.
Bye.
Hey guys.
See ya.
Nice seeing you.